welcome to the arse end of a Jägerpanzer 38T, and somehow it has attracted Sofilein.
Can't stay away.
It's amazing, she just keeps popping up places. So what we're going to do, we're at the American Heritage Museum that's closed for the winter more or less, but they've given us the run. And we're just going to go around and we're going to, over the next series of several videos, just grab random tanks and hop into them and see what you make of them on your unique scale. And well, I got my unique scale. And we might let the cameraman have a bone as well. So where would you think you might want to start?
The first thing that caught my eye is that handsome IS-2 that you can see to the back of us there.
Well, that's subtle.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we can start there.
It makes an impression.
It does that. What, we do a turning?
I definitely did like a weird turn because I didn't think we were going to go all the way. That's cool too. We can make him edit all that out. Waste his time.
I could hear every word you're saying.
I know. That's the best part.
The first thing you wanted to see when you walked into this lovely large collection of fascinating and excellently preserved vehicles is an IS-2, which, granted, has its points. But why for you? Why an IS-2?
Well, at first, focusing on the IS family of tanks and Soviet heavy tanks wasn't really a thing for me until I started to play World of Tanks.
Okay.
And the Soviet line is really, really well fleshed out, and so
That's
the KV,
one way of putting it, yes.
Yeah, and then the IS tanks are some of the first lines that a lot of beginner players, including myself, went through.
True.
So I started to really enjoy heavy tank play and got into kind of like the brawl, and you get to kind of get aggressive, and the 122 really holds its own in the game. And when you look into that and see how it held its own in its own role in the war as well, it gets more and more interesting. So interacting with it in the game got me more interested in seeing these things, and it's really hard to find Soviet vehicles stateside.
Right, now this is the only IS-2 in North America, as far as I can recall. So it's certainly is a unique find. I'm kind of personally in two minds about the vehicle. I mean, regardless of its merits in World of Tanks, and yeah, it's a pretty good vehicle in World of Tanks. I don't know. There's an argument that says this is one of the best tanks that ever came out of World War II. I mean, for the same weight, more or less, as the Panther. You got that 122, you got the thick armor, you got the wide tracks, and you don't really have quite the same reliability problems.
Right.
On the other hand, you got a gun that's too big. You got a ridiculous reload speed. The interior is poorly laid out. So, yeah, I'm not too sure about it on the real merits.
Yeah, there's a lot of it comes down kind of to, if you're thinking tank versus tank, it's going to be kind of situational. So it's got 10 less tons on it than the Tiger, but similar armor. But it saves a little bit. You've got the Panther, which has a better power to weight ratio. It's a little bit more maneuverable, but the IS line improved the transmissions that the problematic the KV line had. So you kind of found a little bit of balance there. And there's a lot of arguments about, so this gun versus the Panther gun. So smaller round, lighter round, but a higher muzzle velocity. Yep. And when you're looking at kinetic energy, velocity matters more.
Right, but again, quantity has a quality of its own. So especially if you know, even HE, a 122 HE versus the Panther is not going to react well to it.
Right.
So as long as you kill the tank, you don't have to necessarily punch through the armor. Yeah,
and it's not really a focus in World of Tanks, but these things, like the rounds for these are a good 55 pounds compared to the much smaller ones for the Panther 75. Yeah, that's not, so they loaded separately. It came with the round on the top and then at about an 18-pound shape charge on the bottom.
Right.
And it had a lot less, they made it a lot less spacious on the inside, so it carried less ammunition.
When again, you see the size of the breech is absolutely huge.
Massive.
It just completely, and then you got the huge ammunition and all that. But one nice thing about this, so of course it was supposedly replaced by the IS-3.
Right.
But look which one was removed from the inventory first.
Right.
The IS-3 went first. This hung around longer. Yeah. Which inherently says this was a pretty fundamentally good design. Now that's it. It's basic. I mean, look at the pins here. Basic little clips. No rubber on the tires. It's just raw metal on metal, which probably makes a nice sound.
I'm sure it does.
Torsion bars. Where do you think this tank came from?
Where do you think it came from?
Yeah. If you were going to go shopping for an IS-2, where would you buy it?
I'd probably be looking around a little place called Tankograd, which made about 2250 of them during the course of the war.
If you were a museum owner and you wanted to buy an IS-2, where would you buy an IS-2?
Dark web. You'd probably want to look for some of these around maybe Romania or Poland, or obviously still in the Russian state itself, but a ton of them found their way to China. And China had a lot of those in the precursors to the Vietnam War.
And this one came from the Netherlands.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did it end up there?
Well, it used to be after the war, and we've been tracking this down. So what we've done is we've contacted Yuri Pasholok over in Russia, and he's gone, looked at the serial number. He knows where this thing was made, what unit it served with. It was in the battle for Berlin. It, after the war, got transferred to the NVA, the East German Army, and it served in the NVA for a while until finally it was turned into a monument. Somewhere along the lines, we think it was turned into a ranged target. So, for example, if you look under here, you see a penetration that goes right into the gun tube.
Wow.
And that was not conducted. Some people say it was done by a Panzerfaust. No, wasn't a Panzerfaust. This was a KE round, and obviously the East German Army would not have accepted a tank into service that had a hole in the gun barrel. But you'll see other ones, up here. There's a couple on the side. There's a few in the front that punch right through. So this was a ranged target. They found it in Sofilein. They shipped it over, and they brought it back to running state. So if you ever saw this thing in the Netherlands, it was sitting out in the field, was rusting away. I will say one thing, the staff here do fantastic restoration work. So they took the engine out of the T-3485 that's over there, and somehow they got enough parts to make it run. So
Wow.
this is a running IS-2.
It would be amazing to hear this thing start up and go, but I don't think we have time for that one today.
We don't have time for that, and they're not really allowed to run it much here anyway.
They didn't
because we're
say
just
don't.
going. True, but I don't actually know how you start an IS-2.
Yeah, it'd probably be a best guess.
There's probably a big red button that says start, which I guess in Cyrillic is what? CTAPT?
Probably. Yeah,
Something close to that.
Best guess.
Of course, we have the wonderful fit and finish of Soviet tanks of the time.
You gotta love a cast turret.
Well, it's nice and shapely.
It is.
External fuel tanks. Problem or no problem to have external fuel tanks?
I guess it kind of depends on the kind of fuel that you're using.
Does it?
I would imagine. Well, some burn like with diesel compared to gasoline. It's going to be a little bit different. So if you like the Soviet Army, tend to have people hanging around on the outside, things can get pretty hairy pretty quick.
Well, true, but if you got incoming fire that is setting light to your fuel tanks that are on the outside, and you are sitting on the tank as well, I don't think the fire is the highest on your
Yeah,
list
you
of
probably shouldn't be on the
problems
outside.
at that moment in time.
If you're at a place to get shot at, you probably should be on the inside.
All right, so of course
Yeah.
this is a diesel, but if you think about it, if that's
Yeah.
petrol,
Yeah. Okay.
and it catches fire, what actually happens?
Well, you lose your fuel,
Okay, and
and you're seen from quite far away.
that doesn't matter. You just be shot at.
Yeah, true.
So all that happens is the fire burns on the outside, and maybe it falls down off into the side. It's actually not much of a problem.
Rather better
That's
than on the
assuming
inside.
that's assuming it even ignites. Now there are fuel tanks on the inside. Don't get me
Right.
wrong,
Right.
but that's people say, oh, the fuel on the outside is a hazard.
No.
Not really, unless you put it in the wrong place. So in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, we actually had rubber fuel tanks on the outside of the M1. And the idea was that when you ran out of fuel, you'd drop it to the side, you'd run a hose from one end of the rubber bladder into the fuel tank, and you'd drive on it and sort of squish the fuel into the fuel tank.
Huh.
Not so great because it was so high up on the side of the tank that when that caught fire, you had a problem. But here, you're right on the edge of the sponson, it falls down off the track onto the ground.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. Better out than in.
Working with you is going to be a challenge to my sanity sometimes.
I think we'll grow into it.
Right, so what can you say about the front?
Well, it looks like the bow is also completely cast, which as you come into the war, you start to come away from like rivets, and even for like, there's things that are welded as well, but whole pieces are cast, and here's an example of
Nice
that.
big, large welds there. The Russians
Yeah.
actually got very, very good at welding. They're not given enough credit for their developments in the welding technology. It looks ugly as all hell because
I
they didn't bother
disagree
with
completely.
that is hard. If you bought a car and your construction looked like that, would you be happy?
This is character. This is character. This is nice. Think of it like a battle scar, but it was there before anything ever even started. It's character. Nobody else's tank looks
You're one of
quite
those
like
people that you buy jeans with the holes already pre-ripped, aren't you?
I don't have a problem with it.
I'm sorry.
I think it's nice.
Okay, obviously we have a difference of opinion here on aesthetics.
All
But
tanks are beautiful.
Nobody ever.
Don't you appreciate diversity? It's 2018. Every tank is beautiful. They come in all different shapes and sizes, and you need to respect that.
Where are you for armored cars, or are you just sort of biased against wheeled vehicles?
If they have tracks on them, that's all right.
There aren't very many armored cars that have tracks now. Granted, you can actually fit over the wheel tracks, but
That's true.
No.
If it's got wheels on it, I'm a little less interested. But
So there's a
you know,
222 over there.
Don't distract me.
Well, have a look at it. There's all of two 222s in the world that are intact. One is here and one is in Russia, and this is in far better condition. Now, the Wheel Foundation are, in fairness, restoring another one, but you cannot go past that 222 and not go, wow.
I can walk right past it on my way to this baby. For the fake track wolf pack.
Priorities one.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a basic cupola. We have a driver's port that is as basic as they come, with 2 little periscopes that aim out sideways, which is of course one because you're driving like this or like this. Your markings, but what's really important is actually engraved down here. People will see the cast markings, but the actual serial number and the factory manufacturing is under here.
Okay. So a Soviet tank whisperer like Yuri Pashalak could read this and know exactly where it came from.
That's exactly what happened.
Right.
So they sent us photographs of what the unit's vehicles looked like in Berlin, and there was like a marking on the side. So the museum here has been trying to get the information as to what this vehicle looked like in service, so they can paint it up exactly as the vehicle was.
Cool.
So we're looking forward to that, as well, of course, as driving around.
That day should come.
Yep. Little pistol port on the side there, because why not? I guess since we talked about it, the next thing to do is to hop inside and see how much room we have or have not got.
Right.
But there's a couple of interesting little features inside that turret that are probably worth having a look at.
Alrighty, let's take a look.
All right. But your visibility isn't bad out there, is it?
I wouldn't think so. There's plenty of ports. It doesn't seem so restricted. You got a 360 view up here as well.
You got the radio.
Yeah.
We got this bizarre teeter-totter.
This is very bizarre.
For the gunner seat and the loader seat.
That is excellent.
It's weird. Huge control. You can see, of course, the teeth for the turret wing in here as well.
Very cool feature.
If you're curious, I am, of course, sitting on the edge of the engine compartment. In fact, it's not even the engine compartment; it's the hull side.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the hull side simply because the cameraman has to fit somewhere, and Mike is crammed in as far back as he can on the loader side. Yeah, so.
But because
here's Mike doing this filming. He's crammed back on the loader side there on the floor, and that should give you a demonstration as to just how little room there is in these things for film. And this is a big turret. Don't get me wrong. This is a big turret.
For a Soviet tank especially.
True. But you'll also notice, so as I said, I'm sitting on the hull side, which is vertical, but there's a couple of changes from the T-34s. For starters, the hulls are vertical, and they're not sloped. The suspension. What's the suspension on this tank?
Torsion bar?
Correct. Which means less room is taken up inside the tank.
Okay, compared to the system.
Compared to the T-34, the Christie suspension with the big springs.
Right.
So this has got little torsion bars going across. In fact, I don't think they're even all the way across. The Soviets had this design for a half-length torsion bar. And they have left room for a very large escape hatch behind the driver.
Yeah.
Now, definitely bigger than typical of the time. Driver's position looks a bit bland. Yeah, your Soviet tank. What do you need driver's position for? Just 2 sticks, gear shift. And
2 sticks and a
couple of
sledgehammer.
pedals. Yep, there you go.
We could fit 4 people in here. What would you rate this tank's comfort level?
It's a good question, actually, because I'm looking at some of the nice features, like the size.
Yeah.
Counter that by the fact that you're maneuvering heavy, big rounds and absolutely bizarre seating with no turret basket or no turret floor.
Right.
So you can here you go. Turret is traversing. You're holding the shell casing for the 122.
Right.
And you are trying not to trip over things on the floor as the turret is traversing.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you trip or you get your leg caught in something, I don't think the tank is going to notice.
No.
You will notice.
You'll notice. Everybody else around you also may notice.
God damn it, I just had this uniform cleaned and now you've sprayed blood all over it.
This keeps happening.
Yeah. Damn it, we're gonna have to requisition yet another loader.
Oh, too much paperwork. They don't grow them like they used to.
They don't. This is, I don't know, it's better than average. I don't know, maybe a 6.5.
A 6.5 out of 7 out for a Soviet tank, I'll take it.
You know, you're right. By Soviet standards, let's make it an 8.
All right, 8 out of 10.
There we go.
Cool.
I do note that the loader does get the first aid kit.
There we are.
What else is there to say about an IS-2? I mean, this is probably your first IS-2?
Yeah, this is the first one that I have come across. I know they have one at Duxford. I think that might be an IS-2M, actually.
I don't know which of the two it is. I haven't been to Duxford.
I think it's an IS-2M. If you look and you see the side skirts and it has some stowage space on the side of the hull, you're looking at an IS-2M.
Yeah.
A lot of the other changes were internal.
This actually received a partial upgrade. So it was very rare for an export IS-2 to receive the full IS-2M modification.
Okay.
But it actually does have some of them. It actually has has the IS-2M tracks and running gear. It didn't get, let's say, the night vision and so on that defines the IS-2M.
And since it has a T-3485 engine, it wouldn't be talking about the improved cooling or anything for the original engines that the IS would have had.
Well, I mean, you got the engine versus the cooling system,
Right.
so I don't know what
we
the
wouldn't know
cooling
what they
system
would have been
is.
there.
I haven't asked. Yeah, so it's rare to see an IS-2, and if you want to see an IS-2 like this one, as it says, the American Heritage Museum just outside of Boston. So I think we will go find some other tank to fawn over.
Yeah, you can't find one of these anywhere else on the continent. So it's an amazing condition. You can really see.
Well, you won't be allowed inside. But
Yeah, well, ask very nicely, you know. But there's a lot of interesting features when you compare it, because people like to talk about the Panthers, and you've done some videos recently with Panthers. And so as they were contemporaries and adversaries, I think it's interesting to take note of the different features in design and how they would have played against each other.
There were different functions. I mean, this is a heavy tank. The Panther was a medium tank.
Right.
But
they weighed the same.
But for the just the technical design, as you say, it weighs exactly the same. I think the Soviets probably got more bang for the buck out of the IS-2 than out of the Panther.
Right.
But always, what was the best tank in the war? Oh, Panther.
Well, Panther.
Or in my case, Sherman 76.
Right.
Or actually, I will hear arguments for the Panzer IV.
Okay.
But people forget about the IS-2, which is such a shame because it really is a very good design for its time.
The cannon's very effective, and people all want to hear about tank versus tank. How did it follow? How did it do against the fight? What about the Tiger? What about the duels? And da-da-da. But sort of the usefulness of having such a massive gun with HE rounds is like anti-infantry or fortification, where this gun did very well against.
Anti-everything.
Anti-everything.
You hit a Panther with this thing and it will know it's been tickled.
Yeah.
The other problem with the IS-2, of course, though, is that very shortly afterwards, you get T-54.
Right.
And when that happens, what's the point?
Right.
So export it became, sadly, in reservists because the Russians never threw anything away. Oh, this is now obsolete, but we'll keep a few thousand of them just in case.
Yeah, you saw them for some years after the war. It was an effective design, and I think that from reading, it sounds like the troops were interested in having this added to their vehicles that they used. Good protection, good firepower, the mobility quite decent, reliability quite decent.
Yeah. And as I said, you get over the same bridges that a Panther would go over.
Right. Some of the things that were kind of interesting is that these things were placed in like heavy tank brigades, just like how you hear about the heavy tank divisions that Germany had. Yeah. The same things for these, for like particular assault or.
Well, in fairness, the Germans tended to go heavy tank battalions.
Yeah, and these were until you saw the Soviets doing a similar thing with the IS-2.
Yeah, this was actually I'd need to look it up. It's the 99th Guards heavy tank.
Yeah, that's right.
This vehicle was in.
Poland used some of these things as well. It's the only other nation to have used IS-2 in World War II.
That will be true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I say, let's go find some other tanks to drool over.
Alrighty.
There are plenty here.
I'll never forget this one.